time. I always start. You turn.
This will be the first one I've ever started in like 13 of these.
I know. We're changing it up.
Hey everybody, it's Doc. Welcome to the Modern Boomer Podcast. It is episode 2 of season 2. Damo and myself have been working and not doing a whole lot else but working.
Yes.
Damo riding a little bit.
And crushing my feet. Yeah, it's good. It's good. I actually can walk on it now. I think you're right. I think it is just a hematoma or whatever the proper word for that is.
Yeah. You didn't get an x-ray?
Nah. Once it started deswelling. I don't know what the proper term is.
Yeah. That works.
Once the swelling started going down and I was able to walk on it and bend my toes. But like I told you, the minute it happened, I braced myself because I was going to tip over because I kind of yanked my foot in pain. And I got off and was like, okay, well, let's get out of here. And so we went to the motorcycle store and I got off and pulled my boot off and I bent all my toes and bent my foot and squished my foot everywhere. And I didn't have any searing pain. And to me, that means I didn't break anything. I didn't have any fractures because if I had broken it or had a fracture, moving anything would have been excruciating. Right. And so to me, I must have just probably tore some muscle or flesh in there, just damaged something and it just swelled up and it is what it is. So yeah, it's a lot better today. I can feel it being kind of prickly too, as like blood is starting to maybe seep or settle, so
yeah. Usually when you can like on your feet and ankle, it's pretty easy for you to just contuss or just what's the word? Contuss the nerve. What's the word?
Yeah.
And you can actually the nerve will start tingling, and you can actually the nerve. And we see that with sprains a lot too, but it tends to get better. Think of it like a lampshade. If you didn't feel anything, then the nerve is cut.
Yeah, right. Well, and no, it was excruciating. And then I really couldn't even sleep the other night because it was just throbbing. And I ended up sleeping in here because in my office, just because the bed wasn't helping with the animals and stuff. So it wasn't great. But I mean, with my motorcycle myself, I probably put 400 pounds of weight or so on my foot.
Wow.
350 pounds of weight. So, but I've never broken a bone. Shout out to Milk. And, so yeah, no, it wasn't fantastic, but I haven't ridden all season. And I started off by going to a crowded place and I got a little sidetracked and wasn't really paying attention, trying to get out of the steep parking lot and kind of rolled into a wall. And for you guys know that with my fancy bike, I have these frame sliders on there that are designed just to catch the little incidents that happen as a human being. And well, my foot caught between the frame slider and the wall and squished my foot sideways. So
well, at least it didn't break, because you would have been out of commission for a while.
I would have been really upset if I've never broken a bone, and I've been in some pretty serious accidents and things like that in my life, and I'd have been like, damn, that's a record. I didn't really want to start at 31.
Yeah. Right. I broke 2 bones.
Really?
I was a little kid, and I was fooling around. I was standing on top of a garbage can that was flipped upside down. And I tried to jump off it, and when I jumped off it just kind of kicked out.
It teetered.
I broke my arm, and then diving to get a save in racquetball, I broke my hand.
That'll do it. I played football and I dived one time and I landed on my wrist like this, like my wrist straight out, and it swelled up like a softball. And I was like, that I thought I fractured or tore something, and I didn't. I don't know how. I guess that's sometimes the luxury of being kind of a bigger dude, is you tend to be a little more hardy. I can't run very fast, so that also probably helps. But
did you get it x-rayed? Or you
no,
just...
I didn't. No, once I didn't have any excruciating pain, and once the swelling started going down, it was one of the couple of things where it's like, is it worth going through all the insurance and stuff? Like if the pain came back or it swelled up again or it turned black and blue through in and out, I would have definitely gone. but I don't have any external bruising whatsoever. I was wearing protective clothing, which guys, please do if you're on any sort of motor vehicle without a cage.
Right.
I was wearing my motorcycle shoes, and they're pretty sturdy and thick material. And I think really that's probably what saved me from having a fracture. Safety equipment for sure.
That's great.
And don't look away from where you're driving. It's the other lesson to give. But we're human.
That's kind of obvious, though, right?
I hate to say it, but the number one rule in the motorcycle world is it's not about if, it's about when, because you're going to crash or you're going to drop it or you're going to tip it over at some point. I've almost dropped it already once, and it's a $65,000 motorcycle, so I don't really want to drop it, but that's why I spent all the money on the safety features, because it's going to happen. It's going to happen. I'm going to crash at some point. You can't help it. You're a human being. If you can go your whole life without even crashing your car, that's a miracle. Right. You know what I mean? So
how bad of a wreck do you have to get to total the bike? I mean, obviously your bike's worth a lot of money, so it's harder to total it.
It depends. So there's two major ways to wreck on a motorcycle. And I'm sure people in the comments could correct me, but there's a million ways, but there's a high side and a low side. A low side means that if you're on your motorcycle, a low side is like the bike falls and it slides, right? That's a low side. A high side is like where the bike, you're starting to tip and you correct it, but instead it flings you off, right? So like, let's say you're turning and you lose control and you correct it. Instead of it going down, it corrects itself, but it does it so violently that it trebuchets you off. And if it does enough, it'll trebuchet itself with you. That will total the bike because none of the safety stuff will catch it. A low side, I could probably lay the bike down at 60 miles an hour or so on a low side, and it wouldn't be totaled. On a high side, though, it's done. It's gone. If I drop the bike in a parking lot, or like if I was going around a roundabout and hit like the curb or something, you could pick it back up and it's just fine. You may have to replace some plastics and stuff. But the thing to remember is these sport bikes are meant for track. That's our we're temporarily adopting a cat for a friend. So he's
that's a new cat?
Yeah, he's 9 months. He's a bit of a rowdy guy.
I see that.
He's enjoying this new home. But what I was trying to say is that these sport bikes are meant for the track. They're meant for the mountains, and they're meant to be leaned and ridden hard. And so you have to think that they're also designed for you to crash, because you're relying on physics and these gimbal effects, and it doesn't take much to really screw that up. And so they're designed in a sense, with frame sliders and bar ends and wheel protectors and stuff to crash, relatively, but yeah, you can definitely total it. If I slam into a car or something or get hit, that's it.
Jeez.
He's got the zoomies right now. Hey, come here. These zoomies out there.
Your bike is like $10,000 more than my Jeep.
Yeah, well, it's funny because this thing we went to the weekend was an exotic car show. So it was everything from super nice custom cars. There's always a guy with a super nice Honda,
right?
But there was Lamborghinis and Ferraris and Porsche and all sorts of stuff in there. Lotus, even though I think Lotuses are kind of garbage, but some people love them. Mercedes, AMGs, all kinds of stuff. So when you bringing a bike like that there, it fits in the exotic category because it's considered like the Lamborghini or the Ferrari of motorcycles. So
right.
It definitely is the premium, and I drive it like it's a premium. And I know that I'll drop it someday, but I also spent, probably $2,000-$3,000 on just things to protect it in the case that it is dropped or laid down or whatever, so that I can reduce the damage as much as possible. So, yeah. And the frame sliders we saw was really good at crushing my feet, and the bike's fine. So
your foot's
nothing broken.
Your foot's going to break before the bike breaks.
Absolutely. No, it was a silly incident. And it also reminds me of my age. I know I'm a couple years younger than you, but I don't remember hurting that bad from a squished foot. And I've really squished myself plenty of times in my life. So right. Some points you just don't heal like you used to.
Yeah.
But
so I've been having, a lot of technology problems,
I know.
No shit, right? Computers are like a labor of love, and my mindset is such that everything has to work right. And if things don't work right, I obsess. I can't stop thinking about it. I'm in bed. I'm on my iPad. I'm looking up solutions. I'm on websites.
It's kind of a man thing.
It's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy.
Right.
I have redone my PC from scratch twice now in probably 3 months. And that's not an easy task because there are so many drivers and so much hardware. And if you guys have ever seen my YouTube channel and checked my office out, you see all the shit that's hooked up to my PC. It's literally like an L-shaped desk of stuff hooked up. All of it with their own specific settings, drivers, shortcuts, whatever. So I was having a problem where I could not get the taskbar to always work in Windows, and it appears that the solution has just solved itself. So
it seems like this. Windows works that way sometimes.
And that makes me nervous because it's like, I don't know what I did, but after months of having problems, I'm seemingly no longer having problems. I don't know.
Well, it's funny because so for the people watching, Doc and I we've had a pretty long-standing relationship, and anytime I'm watching a medical show or I have the minor medical inconvenience, or somebody in my family has a medical inconvenience, I text Doc. And obviously I know that that what he tells me, I don't like, I take it for like friendly advice. I'm not taking it as like my doctor's giving me this set advice. But in return, I get the IT questions, and I feel bad because, and I don't want to compare computers to the human body, but when you have as many complexities from hardware, everything in the middle to your top level OS and all the software after that, you can have a symptom like I have some pain in my stomach. It's like, well, that can be 60 billion fucking things, right? And computers are no different. So even though you may think you have these these issues, if you explain that to me, it's like, okay, well, that could be RAM, your hard drive, it could be graphics drivers, it could be this, could be that, could be this, it could be a combination of these software, you know what I mean? And so then you have to start diagnosing each individual thing. And sometimes that's why I can't wait for Doc to come and live in Colorado, which I know at some point he will. Because if I'm sitting at the computer, I can poke around and look for landmarks in a sense.
Yeah.
I don't know what those are in the medical world, but you know what I mean? And try to figure out and help kind of guide, is it hardware, is it software, is it a combination?
Right.
So,
and it's impressive because I know enough about computers to be dangerous. I mean, it's impressive how similar it is. As you were saying, like what you're looking at as a symptom, right?
Right.
So it doesn't mean like there's unless there's an app that's keeping track of, and we were talked about going to Event Viewer in Windows and trying to find out if Windows is logging a problem.
Right.
But if it's not, I mean, all you're seeing is the end result of the problem, right? This doesn't work.
Right.
And as you said, it can be a driver. It could be like a USB hub that's not working appropriately.
Absolutely.
It could be maybe remember you had a problem once. Remember one of your power cords melted?
Yes, the audio issue. Yes.
Remember that?
I do. And not to steal the spotlight or anything, but guys, I'm actually a computer engineer, more than a software engineer. I know the electrical hardware side and I know the software side, and I've done everything in between, from literally assembling machines with PLC logic and then writing the drivers and then doing the software all in one go. So I've done the whole chain, and that was one of those situations where I pulled out every diagnostic tool in my belt and I was stretching my abilities as an engineer. And it was funny because I already forget how I initially discovered it. I had some tools open that watched voltage current, currents on the different rails. And I noticed that one of my 12 volt rails was just dipping to zero. And I'm like, what the heck? And I only caught it because it happened so briefly. And I start digging through that. And when I just I was like, you know what? I'm just going to rebuild my computer and look at every part. And when I did, I saw that scorch mark, and it was a 12 volt USB rail was shorting off to the adjacent ground. And it was a Corsair cable. It wasn't like some cheap Amazon one. And Corsair, was super apologetic. They offered to pay for anything that was damaged. They offered to replace the cable, all sorts of stuff. They were super
Really?
kind to me about it. Yeah. Which is funny because I've heard people had some complaints about Corsair support, but to me, they were very nice. But I also had pictures of this burnt cable. You know, I don't know, that they were good to me. But yeah, it's very unique. And I think like in the medical world, it's really easy to have things that are so like you could it's easy to misdiagnose, and it's easy to start barking down the wrong tree and end up being something entirely different. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Because some systems are all affected in the same way. And yeah, but the audio thing with that power cable, because it like my audio would die, and only my audio. It was the weirdest thing.
And it took a while. It wasn't a quick fix for you.
No, it took me like 3 weeks. I think I was messing with it. And when I finally got mad and I decided to rebuild my computers, when I noticed it, because it was so intermittent, and and really what happened was it was getting worse because the material between the ground and that line the sparking kept taking material, and over time it kept getting worse and worse and worse because it was shorting out so consistently. Shout out to MSI and all these, Corsair and all these fancy computer parts, because they didn't fail because they had safety features and diodes and stuff like that in there.
That's great.
To protect it. So,
That's
but
great.
yeah, they suck when you have those issues.
That kind of problem is kind of like in the medical field, like syncope. Syncope is passing out, right? So losing consciousness could be like a heart rhythm abnormality. It could be anemia. It could be heart weakness, not necessarily a rhythm problem.
Right.
It could be infection. It can be a seizure. It could be a bleed in the brain. It could be a tumor in the brain.
Right.
I mean, there are so many different things that it could be.
That's why WebMD always says cancer.
Right. And that's why people come to the hospital. I looked on the internet and it said cancer. It was like number 3.
I'm dying.
Now I'm here. But that was that I remember I was taking care of a patient when I was a resident.
Okay.
And she was talking about how she would like pass out. 9 times out of 10, probably 98 times out of 100, when you're in the ER, you never find out why someone passes out. Because they're not passed out now. So whatever caused it isn't present now. So, and I remember going through all this stuff and CAT scans and EKGs and heart damage testing and all this stuff. And the girl's like young.
Right. Which makes it even weirder.
Yeah. And we were going to send her home, and she's going to have to follow up with her doctor because, we ran every test we had.
You can only do so much, right?
I had my discharge papers, and I'm getting ready to give them to the girl. And I hear her scream, go, "Oh my God, it's happening again." And she like passes out like on the bed. And I looked at the heart monitor, and she was flatlined.
What?
She was like, we call that asystolic, but she had no heartbeat for like 15 seconds. Maybe not 15, maybe about 10 seconds. Just enough to make you pass out. And then it came back. And
what is that?
She got her pulse back and her blood pressure back, and she woke up. So she ended up having Lyme carditis, which is from Lyme disease.
Oh, like a tick.
Yeah. So you probably have a lot of ticks in Colorado, right?
We don't actually. We don't. If you in the mountains, you can get ticks, yeah, but it's not like Alabama or the South. It's definitely not like that here.
New Jersey and Pennsylvania, they are huge.
We had a friend that had Lyme disease, a mutual friend.
Huge. So every year you'll see somebody young come to the hospital who has a very abnormal heart rhythm or an arrhythmia or very slow heart rhythm, and they're healthy. And it's usually Lyme disease that they never treated. And like latent Lyme or like Lyme that goes untreated will eventually affect your heart.
Don't you know you have Lyme? So what's the, first of all, do you get Lyme disease pretty much anytime you get bit by a tick? Because I've had a tick before.
No, Lyme disease is caused by a bacteria that's in the tick. And if the tick is engorged or attached long enough, it has a higher chance of transmitting that bacteria into your body.
I caught it pretty quick. I caught it pretty quick. That would make sense.
Yeah. Usually
within the
you
hour.
want it less than a day or two.
Oh yeah, I had it within an hour. Because, well, our mutual friend had Lyme disease.
Who did? I'm sorry.
I don't know if we want to say his name on the podcast, but you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, okay.
Our politically, emotionally driven friend who doesn't play games with us anymore.
Right.
From that area. He's not in New Jersey. I forget where he lives, but my Italian brethren, he has Lyme disease.
Yeah.
I remember being sick all the time with it.
Yeah. So Lyme disease ends up what we like to call it a summer flu, because first of all, ticks don't really get out so much in the winter, especially when it's frozen.
Yeah,
so they're usually in the warmer weather after the first frost.
Right.
And ticks will hang out at the very top of a piece of grass.
Right.
And then you walk by it, and it just hooks onto you, and it attaches. So not everybody gets a rash from Lyme disease.
Right.
In fact, most people don't.
Right.
But some people do. And that's the bullseye rash you hear about. But
okay.
Some people don't, and they just say, "Oh, I got a cold. I had a fever. I have chills. I have body aches. Blah 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 blah." It goes away. But then latent Lyme disease, you get like arthritis. You get heart
Is it
problems.
reversible?
With a pacemaker.
No shit.
Yeah, you need.
But she has to have a pacemaker for the rest of her life.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a tick for a day or so and you end up getting Lyme disease at the very early stage, is it just an antibiotic to take care of it, or is it that's it? It's done.
Yeah. No, you have to be on antibiotics for a couple weeks. So yeah, if you catch it, then you'll be okay. But these are people who didn't catch it, and it just wreaked havoc on them.
So it's kind of like the bubonic plague. If you catch it in time, you're not going to die and have black blisters or whatever it is that makes it.
Buboes. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that Lyme disease that stuff freaks me out. It really freaks me out, especially as somebody who's been around some really rusty stuff, is obviously tetanus, tinnitus, because like the lockjaw stuff. I've seen videos of people have that, and it's horrifying.
We call that Rhizus sardonicus.
Yeah, well, it's because like your muscles just contract uncontrollably, right? Now, What's interesting, right, is when you get the certain shot, doesn't that give you like a minor symptom of what that would feel like? That's why those not the shot, but that's why the vaccine hurts like that, because you're getting an injection of it, correct? Right? I feel like I've had that vaccine. I feel like my arm just hurt like uncontrollably first.
Yeah, it doesn't give you the spasm or anything, but it causes a lot of local your immune system reacts to it.
Right, it's freaking out. That makes sense.
And you want your immune system to react to it. You want your immune system to not like it.
Well, it's got to learn from it, right? So I guess it needs to react to it. But the other one that tops all of the things that scare me the most, even more than meningitis, which is a huge fear of mine. Every time you always have a headache, I'm going to check my neck. But is rabies, which is like, honestly, it's the closest thing we have to a zombie infection. Rabies is the craziest thing. And I've seen Medizi. I don't know if you know what Medizi is. It's like that crazy subreddit where they show like, I swear it's for doctors who just like gore, honestly, because it's just like crazy medical stuff. But I saw some videos where people had like full-blown rabies, and like just the psychological breakdown, the absolute rejection to drinking water, crazy temperatures, like fevers that they're just burning them up, and then they die, foaming at the mouth, and they're crazy. You're like psychotic once you get to that point.
I've seen a couple. I've never seen anybody with rabies, but we've had people who were bitten by animals that ended up having rabies. So when you get bit, you need to get rabies immunoglobulin and rabies vaccine. It's not just enough to get the vaccine.
What's the globulin do? Just give your body the ability to defeat it?
That's trying to give you the most emergent protection right now.
Does it work 98% of the time, or is it still a chance?
Yeah.
Like you're good. Yeah, okay.
I believe, I'm trying to remember if this is correct, but I believe that the guy who developed rabies vaccine, the scientist, had to inject a young kid with the vaccine who was bitten by a dog to prove that his vaccine worked.
That's nuts. There's a couple doctors who've done that over the years. Who've the guy that gave him stomach ulcers. Didn't it? The guy that gave himself stomach. He won the
Yeah, the
Nobel
guy
Peace Prize.
who wanted to prove that H. pylori, which is
Yes,
a bacteria, can
right.
give you stomach ulcers. So he drank
I could
the
be a
H.
doctor.
pylori to prove it.
Okay, so actually, I want to correct my answer. I want to say rabies is the scariest one, but is it prion? Is that how you say that?
Prion, yeah.
Yeah,
Those are like-
prion. So prion disease, the misfolded proteins, because that can't be killed with nothing. There's nothing out there that'll fix that. There's nothing out there to prevent it. You can't freeze it, burn it to death, nothing. And if it gets in your system, that's it. You get holes in your brain, you go crazy, you die. And that's horrendous.
Like mad cow.
So cannibalism.
Jakob disease, I think, is a prion disease.
Cannibalism. One of the biggest side effects of cannibalism is prion disease. And I remember watching a video on it, and the guy that had it, he would have these massive mood swings where he'd go from crying to laughing to screaming to like weeping and just rinse and repeat. And then DayZ implemented that, where you can get prion disease from cannibalism, and you're like walking around in the woods at night with no flashlight, and you hear some dude like crying and laughing and screaming and like having all these things from the deep in the woods, and you're like, what the fuck? Yeah, because I remember one time I was playing DayZ by myself at night. For the record, guys, horror movies don't scare me. Horror games, they don't scare me. I'm not like, I don't really fall for that stuff. Jump scares, obviously, nobody can defend against jump scares, but I'm like walking around in the woods at night, and I hear this like weeping, this like heavy weeping, like somebody just got broken up with, followed by this like maniacal laughter, followed by like a angry rage, back to weeping, and I'm like, what the fuck? I logged off, and I Googled it, and I found out that they implemented that. Yeah, you can.
I'm gonna have to watch a video of that. I've never seen it.
Yeah,
that's freaky.
Yeah, and
Holy
it's true. When I Googled it, I was like, that would make sense, because I've seen a video of a dude having like these weird psychological breakdowns because he had long existing prion disease.
Good for them to put that in there.
That's what I said. But I'm like, that's the thing that freaks me out the most. And from what I can tell from my research is that you could have it for a long time before you get symptoms of it.
I'd have to look that up.
Yeah, I mean, I could be wrong, guys. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a doctor. I have to dig through Wikipedia at 1 a.m. because I have insomnia. But
right. There you go.
That's freaky. Don't mess with the protein printers of the body. You know what I mean?
That's right.
So, but yeah, I don't know. Computers don't give you prion disease, but they do have some crazy symptoms, like taskbar's not working.
Yeah, and they'll get you some wife aggro. Are you in there again?
Yeah. Well, it's funny because not even just my wife, but every girlfriend I've always had some frustration. Can you guys? Okay. It's always when I'm in the middle of doing something that all of a sudden love is demanded. When I want to love them, it's not the right time. But I'm the same way, Doc. I don't know how many times on the motorcycle or my truck or a car or anything I've had where like it's on my mind, and then at 1 a.m. I'm downstairs with a flashlight getting numbers off a part or looking at a problem so that I can go to the next stage of my problem solving. And I've had significant others be like, you can't wait? No, because I won't sleep. So this is the best I got right now.
Yeah, 2 o'clock in the morning yesterday. I'm like, our vacuum cleaner needs a new bristle brush.
Yeah.
So I'm on Amazon. I already replaced it today.
They just don't get it. They don't get it. And that's fine. I don't expect you to. There's lots of things I don't get about you guys. So,
I wanted to talk about this, and we can talk very high level.
Okay.
Let's talk video game company.
Yep. So I think with you, I think with where we are with everything, I think we could say some stuff. I don't want to give any names away. I don't want to talk about the project too deeply because we have a little bit, but Doc was brought on board with us as a partner and on the C-suite. We're very happy to have him. I think all the guys initially realized that you may be the most intelligent, business-minded person we have on the group, which is good. Somebody's got to keep the ship afloat. But that's somewhat where our time has been, guys. But it's just that, we have 6 or 7 people working on something that is monumental, and we're all having to really beat down the doors and effort. And it's hard to burn the midnight oil on something like that and then find the energy to do something else. You know what I mean?
Right.
But yeah, we're chipping away. I don't know. I mean, there's not too much else. I don't know what else we wanted to say. I mean, it's coming along great. I think we're making great progress. I think we have a great name for not just the company, but the game. It's cool to see all the stuff come together and getting all this paperwork filed and things like that. And, hopefully in the next year, we're cashing a good sized check and we're opening an office somewhere. You know what I mean?
The thing that's the most interesting thing to me about it is there are so many things that exist in this world, like making a car, or building a bicycle, or, building a video game. And it's like, you look at it from afar and it just looks like, video game. We just build a video game. It's like a widget, right?
Right.
But then you realize just how big of an onion that is to peel. All the different parts. Maybe you know it better than me, but I mean, like, just music and licensure and digital art and using the source engine appropriately, assets, gameplay, testing, funding, social interaction, social media, conventions. It's like it's very overwhelming at times, and you have to like kind of focus down on a piece of it, because if you look at everything as a huge, like, it's like a big ball of yarn until you get everything kind of streamlined. But it's a process, and it's something that is needs to be respected, because it's just so much.
It is so much, and each one of those things breaks down into more granular, complex subsystems. I mean, everything from all the client side actual game development within the engine, all the white boxing and the designs of the maps, then those have to be cluttered and textured, and then they have to be flow tested, and we have to check for every sort of nook and cranny and performance issue. And then then we have to integrate the client with the servers, and the servers with the online cloud platforms, and everything in between. And it's like there's something that needs something else, that needs something else, that needs something else, and it's hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel. But I think what you and I bring to the table, and Joe too, is that we've all worked on big projects or been in scenarios where you can't see the end until the end is pretty dang close. So you just keep chugging along, and at some point you'll see that light. And not to let the idea of not being able to see the end scare you away or hinder you from moving forward. It's kind of like a black box. You're just feeding your time and energy into it, and it slowly comes together. And I'll be honest, I mean, there's been plenty of times where I'm working on our back end stuff, and I'll be writing code for hours and then have a day where I'm just blanking out, and all of a sudden it pops on me, and then I write code for another couple of days, and I'm blanking out trying to figure out how to do the next thing. But we'll get there. And you know what, guys, I don't want to sound like the most cliche thing, but success, money, and millions didn't make themselves without hard work and countless hours of dedication on your own time and effort. There's not a single human being who didn't earn that money in some way or another. Now, if you inherited it, the person before you earned it, you piece of shit. But I digress.
Right. I was watching a video. It was a TikTok video or a YouTube short or something, but somebody was giving the CEO of Starbucks a hard time. And he's like, and it was funny. He's like, do you know where I came from? He goes, I came from like low income housing. My parents didn't have anything. I was in the public school system. I had trouble through school, but I put my head down. I had an idea. I sought the idea. I ran with the idea. I didn't quit, and I made something that is huge. And you want to keep calling me a billionaire,
right?
And as an insult. Well, guess what? I earned it.
Absolutely.
Good for him.
Absolutely. Well, and that's the thing, and that's like one of the things with our modern culture that we have going on right now, is that like it seems like with, wealth distribution and like kind of hinder, like beating down the people of success. Now I get it when you look at somebody like Jeff Bezos and stuff like that, but I have to say, guys, that money breeds money. And if you work hard and you get yourself a seat at the table, and I hate to use that analogy, but it's the truth. When you get to play at the big boys table and you have chips to work with, and if you work with them right, you end up getting more chips, and you keep getting a closer chair to the head of that table. And you don't stop. There's no reason to stop, because I hate to say it, but it still takes just as much work and hard effort and probably some very major sacrifices and some life-changing gambles to get there. And if you're lucky to get there, you get there. But even with Elon Musk, who's all about the world, I mean, that man is still worth what, $160 billion or something crazy. Right. But I mean, you should listen to him talk about when he was trying to secure funding for Tesla. And like it came down to like 24 hours or something, and he finally concealed it, or he finally locked it in. If he hadn't, that would have been it. Tesla would have went under. And just because the number in front of his name is huge doesn't mean that's money in his bank. A lot of people don't realize that doesn't mean it's liquidable cash. It's hard securities and margins and assets that you can't go out and buy a candy bar with. You know what I mean? So
but if it's something that you're interested in, it's just a good lesson to learn to, be prepared to put in the time and realize that like there's not usually a free lunch here. It's very rare for you to do something small and it make something financially big out of it. There are some exceptions, but for the most part, I mean, you got to be willing to put in the time and effort and roll your sleeves up and, get a little dirty
and fail. You have
fail.
To learn to fail. Yeah.
You learn more from your failures than you do your successes.
Absolutely.
And then, once in a while you'll hit one out of the park and hopefully we'll hit something out of the park with this. So, we'll keep our fingers crossed and our head down.
And and at first I was really worried that the first one we put together, the first thing we released, if it failed, that would be it. But I keep telling myself, knowing the team that we have, we would lick our wounds for a minute and then be like, all right, that's cool, I'm done. And then we would work on the next one or make changes or whatever we need to do. But I'll be honest with you, and I don't mean to be egotistical and a pessimist kind of mixed together, but the gaming market has been shit. And we're not fighting the golden era of video games anymore. We're not fighting these monumental gladiators. It's just slapped together shit and products day in and day out. And I think that our business model and our mission statement and things that we're living by now, I would almost say the religion of our business is going back to the golden standard. And I think that that in itself will bring us customers and clients, and that the game, people will be lenient with the growing pains, because they know that as a company, we care about overall quality above all. And we're doing other things in the background to make sure that we can secure game quality without having to worry about the financial pain of getting things out as quickly as possible. So, there's no magical button. We have to do other things, but yeah, no, I think we have a good head on our shoulders, and I know we're trying to get out quick, but I know some team members have had some crazy things happening lately, and you and I have been super busy with work. And I always joke, I hate complaining about work to you, but we've both been super busy, and it's been exhausting, but we'll get there. And at some day I'll be sipping a Mai Tai in Bora Bora, hopefully, after our success.
But that's kind of what's good about being able to do something like this and still have like, a main source of income besides this, because video game companies like Blizzard, Activision, and some of the smaller indie companies, I mean, that's their bread and butter. They live and die by these creations. They put food on the table with these creations. And, there's a lot riding on that. So that's where deadlines and stuff like that means so much more, and pressure means so much more. Absolutely. Because, it's got to be success, or you need to eat. But in our case, we can take the time to try to make it as good as possible
Right.
without the fear of like, hey, let's just push it out because
We need to make
we need a
money.
paycheck here. We need to get
Right.
some revenue.
Right.
We don't need that. So we'd
Right.
rather make something good and be proud of it and stand by it.
Right.
And we have the ability to do that because of this. So it kind of
Right.
works out. And I know that the company we're founding is going to be very, very much based on listening. A big tenet of it is listening to the community. So
Yeah, I mean, you don't make brand loyalties by ignoring the people who use your brand, right? And yeah, and it's a good point that in the current state, because we have jobs and we're doing everything on our part-time, we can focus purely on quality. But like I was saying earlier, we're trying to develop systems in the background that we can also sell when the company becomes real, so that we can continue that same era of, hey, we only care about quality, guys. Take your time, get the stuff done right, because we have a cash flow in other ways that
Right.
allows us to not worry about getting the game out immediately. And I'll tell you what, I think the business would rather take VC runway loans before we released a crappy product. Because you know what, you can pay back a high interest loan and it may hurt a little bit, but it's really hard to recover a bad reputation.
that's true.
And I'm willing to make a lot of sacrifices on the business and financial side before I ruin a company's reputation. And you go back, you think about great companies like Bungie, or even classic EA or classic Ubisoft, before they became monsters. When they released a product, you had trust in it. The first couple of Battlefields, the first couple of Rainbow Six games, and everything in between, you knew it was going to be a good product. And I just sad that to see that goes away. And so there's a lot of inspiration from these indie companies now that are like the game I played for the channel, Stray, was made by a small developer, and it won so many awards, and it was a
Great
beautiful game, and I didn't run into any bugs in the whole game, the whole playthrough.
That's impressive.
So, yeah, it's very impressive, especially because I'm kind of a gorilla and I just bump into everything,
Try to break it.
But no, I mean, and that was an inspiration to me. And actually, because we've been developing this game, I've been playing a lot of games I never thought I would play, just to get an idea of certain systems and ideas and feels. And I'm going to be honest, I would say 8 out of the 10 games I've played, I've run into some sort of major bug. And some of them are like games that I love, like the Division series, and they've been around for years and they're still just riddled with massive issues. And it hurts me. It hurts.
Right.
It really does.
Not Star Citizen issues, but issues.
No, Star Citizen's its own demon, and I'm surprised that guy's not in prison for how much money he's taken. And again, and to be fair, and to play devil's advocate for them, that game has some lofty goals.
It does.
And it's hard to reach the stars. You need literally a rocket ship made of money to get to there, and that's what they're trying to get. So,
Yeah.
but our team is really full of skilled guys and people who just, even if they're not the greatest 3D artist in the world, or the greatest world designer or greatest graphic artist or whatever, where all of us are cramming knowledge down our throat and reading books and really learning the material, and our skills are developing at record breakneck speed, and we're implementing features out of the gate. I know for me on the programmatic side, I'm putting in a lot of my personal experience, professional experience into it. And sure, it's actually going to double my time and how long it takes for me to get things done, but I don't have to worry about legacy code, and I won't worry about things that I can't fix because it's just band-aids and string and duct tape holding it together.
Right.
I don't want to deal with that. And that's how you get bugs that are hard to fix and resolve, and I'm trying to prevent that now. And thankfully, people like Chris and yourself and Hubert and so forth, we're all doing things in the most professional way we possibly can, and our infrastructure and our DevOps is as professional as it can be in our current state, so that we can hit the ground running in a sense. So
Yeah.
it's been a lot of work, but it's been rewarding at every step. So I just think we've been so suffocated by everything that's going on. I feel like I haven't really been following the world.
Well, there's a lot going on in the world right now.
There is.
A lot of Trump stuff in the news, and we'll see how that goes.
I know about that.
But
Sorry,
we won't
Biden.
make, yeah, we won't make this a political podcast.
Not
At
today.
least not today. That's a bigger discussion.
I think this podcast, guys, was supposed to be a kind of just an update about everything that's been going on in the world with us. And actually, I do think we have some ideas on how we're going to merge this into the company once it becomes a reality, so that we can use company time as a reason to talk to you guys. You know, but also because when we have more resources, things like that, we want to bring you guys even a higher quality show. And we'll see what that looks like in the upcoming months and years. But be patient with us, as we're both career professional people during the day, and I know a lot of our listeners are as well. But also, we're trying to bring something good to the gaming world, and that takes a lot of time as well. And so your understanding there is the biggest support we could have right now. So.
Absolutely. And certainly go back and check out the last episode where we interviewed Ken
I'm
and
still
Roberta
on
Williams.
Cloud9.
That's
still on Cloud9.
That was hard. That's going to be tough to beat.
I had people reach out to me from my work to watch that episode.
Did they really?
Yeah, my boss and a couple of our executives were like, "You had Ken and Roberta Williams on?" And I'm like, "Yeah." They're like, "Can you send me that?" I'm like, "Yeah." Please don't judge me, but I'll send it to you.
There you go.
So
yes, we'll definitely have more. I'm gonna do a little studio tour, just talking about making a better quality thing. But I added a couple more green screens to my basement, some better microphones. So we'll be doing stuff in the near future that will be interesting, and just being ready for it is part of the plan, at least for me.
Absolutely. And I plan to do some moto vlogs again coming up here pretty soon with the summer rolling around. I've finally, I know last summer I dropped off, but I'm going to be honest with you, I kind of just fell in love with the bike, and I wanted to spend some time just being with the bike. And now that I've kind of gotten that out of my system, I'm ready to really show you guys, especially being up south here a little more, show you some really cool stuff in this area, and bring you along to some of the cool underground of Denver, that the car scene that people don't really know about. That's really interesting. It's one of the largest in the country. So
that's pretty cool.
I think it'll be a cool thing to see, some really cool exotic cars and stuff like that. So
cool. So more to come, guys. Thanks for watching.
Absolutely.
Check out Damon's Moto Vlog, and check out my channel where I do some reviews, ed.gamer, and follow us on social media. And till next time, guys.
Thank you, guys. See you, boys and ladies.
you.